This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Judith.
And I'm Alina. We both lost babies to SIDS in winter 2021.
In the throes of grief, I reached out to a stranger on the internet and our friendship was born.
In the years since, we've been working hard to survive, rebuild, and navigate the continual challenges that have come our way, including divorce,
Job loss,
dating while bereaved,
moving multiple times,
health scares,
pregnancy and parenting a living child,
starting new jobs, and so much more.
We are tired.
Happily ever after is out of the question for us, but this podcast documents our journeys to happier ever after because we believe life after loss is worth living.
So join us as we laugh, cry until we laugh.
Welcome to As Long As I'm Living podcast.
We're so glad you're here.
Hey,
we're here. We did it, guys.
This is the first interview we've done in a while. What was a lot? I mean, it's probably been...
I don't even know the last interview we did.
Although I don't know if we're interviewing you or you're interviewing us. I think we're just...
We're chatting, ladies. We are just conversing, shooting the shit. Like, yeah.
So for those of you who are listening to this and have not maybe seen the title of this episode, I wonder if you recognize the voice that just talked, because I bet there's people who listen to our podcast who also listen to your podcast.
I would believe it. Yeah. I hope. I mean, yeah, absolutely. You guys are a vibe and I dig it. Thanks for chatting with me today. You guys are such a vibe. Like, I actually had no idea until like recently. And I love it.
Yeah, we're a mess. We're not legit.
We're amateur hour.
We all are. And it's honest. It's honest work.
Yes, it's honest work.
Anybody who says they've got it together, especially moms and grieving moms, get out of here. I can't with that.
Well, we can promise you one thing, which is that we are not. We do not have it together.
I love the honesty.
We have never purported to have it together, but I'm going to let you introduce yourself. I guess we should all introduce ourselves because I think we're going to cross-post this to both platforms.
Yeah.
But I'll let you go first. Since you reached out and started this whole chat, let's go ahead and have you go first and then we'll each go.
I did, didn't I? Okay. I invited myself. Okay. That's how I operate now. Okay. I'm Katherine Lazar. If you do recognize my voice, I have the At a Total Loss podcast. My sweet son, Brody, was stillborn at 37 weeks in January of 2022 after a very healthy pregnancy. And then I just went on a mission, y'all. I went on a mission to have conversations like this because I was told the odds of what happened to me was like being struck by lightning and I can just try again in 3 months. And I didn't buy it. I was confused. I didn't understand what grief was, especially traumatic grief. Everyone around me was kind of treating it like just any loss, which is, every loss is valid, but I couldn't figure out why this one nothing was making sense. And so I set out to have conversations with other mothers who had a similar experience that I did. So that was termed stillbirth. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough to find several. And when I just first started talking to them, I was like, hey guys, make this make sense. I don't know what's happening to me. And those conversations saved my life. So I asked them if I could record them. They were like, oh yeah, do it. They're so cool. They're a vibe too. You'd love them. And I did. I set out my podcast, 6 months after Brody died. And I was on a mission to fill some empty arms and empty space in my house. And I know we've talked about this, Judith, about the decision to start a podcast. And then the rest is just history. My content became my online journal for a very private person. It was wildly not private anymore. Every thought was just out there. And I started realizing the odds were not like being struck by lightning. There were way more of us than I could have ever imagined. In the conversations with all types of child loss, baby loss, pregnancy loss was just incredible. And they're the most incredible women I've ever met. And so that just stemmed into this long mission I've been on. And now I'm making it my life's work. So here we are. Yeah, that was long-winded, but that's who I am. I ain't done yet. I'm just really getting warmed up here.
I love it.
As far as my mission. Yeah. So I know that you guys have been doing this for a while.
I guess I will go next.
Yeah, please do.
So my name is Alina. I am Quinn's mom. My son Quinn was born in 2020 and he died January of 2021 of sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS, sudden unexplained infant death, SUID. And in the throes of grief, I was trying to find a community. And I am also, as you said, Catherine, a very private person, a very introverted person. And so I was basically commenting on like forums online, like looking for like the right people to meet. And I happened to comment on this one random Reddit post on the infant loss subreddit. And that whatever it was that I said struck a chord with Judith, who is also here. She's my podcast co-host, and I'll talk about the podcast in a second. But she reached out to me on Reddit and immediately took me under her extroverted friend wing. And she'll talk about her son in a second. She's also a SIDS mom. And she basically, moved into my life. She brought all of her stuff with her and came and was like, okay, I think we should go on a vacation. And so we did that. And then like a couple months after that was like, okay, I think we should start a podcast. And I was like, okay, sure. And so about 10 months after my loss and 8 months after hers, we started As Long As I'm Living podcast. The name of the podcast is a reference to the Robert Munch book, Love You Forever. The love you forever, like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby you'll be. That's actually written on Judith's son's gravestone. As long as I'm living, my baby you'll be. And that's kind of the podcast name has sort of two meanings. One is that, of course, our children, as long as we are alive, they will be our babies. And then the second is, we definitely felt very motivated from the start of the loss, and certainly the start of the podcast journey, that we didn't want this loss to ruin the rest of our lives. We wanted to continue living a life after this loss. And so it was kind of like, well, we're still alive, we're still here. And as long as we're living, we want to have a life that is worth living. And so our podcast is sort of, it's been a very long journey. We've been doing this for 4 years. And so we've told the story of our own lives, our own grief journey from the early days of the loss all the way through until now. We're now both 5 years out, which is truly hard and shocking to me, hard to believe and shocking. And so it's, happy episodes when we're feeling good. It's really sad episodes on the bad days. We, especially in the beginning, recorded a lot when we were actively upset and crying, which is kind of crazy. I don't think I would do that now, but we did that in the beginning, and I'm so glad we did. We also interview experts in relevant fields. So we've interviewed a coroner, and we've interviewed an OBGYN who specializes in pregnancy after loss and stillbirth, delivering stillborn babies. We've interviewed an EMDR therapist and many other, kind of relevant experts. And really, this is kind of just like our little space. We talk about so many random things, whatever strikes our fancy. Just recently on our Instagram, I was like, does anybody know a death doula? Like, I just feel like that would be like an interesting interview and something that is sort of like relatively adjacent to loss. So we interview a whole bunch of people. We do our own things, but I would say mainly our podcast is our own personal journeys as opposed to yours, which is a lot of people's journeys coming together and sort of sharing their wisdom. Ours is sort of, I wouldn't say our wisdom.
I have solo episodes where I'm like, I just get on and I just word vomit. I'm thinking, what just happened, story time, F-bombs, and then I'm like, I blacked out, and then I just post it. Yeah. But that's helpful because it's real.
Explain that beautifully, and I get like a little emotional just hearing, because I think it's so beautiful. I'm so touched that we did that. I'm Judith. I'm Aiden's mom, and the only thing that I'll add to what Alina said so beautifully, and I was so touched by the name that we chose for this podcast. Again, even though I was touched when we created it, like I'm like, wow, that is a really beautiful name. But
wait, what was the book based? The author did have a child loss, right? A baby loss, right?
100%. It's one of those things that once you lose a child, you're like, I'm very aware of everyone who's lost a child. I can tell you all the celebrities that have lost a child. I can tell you all the famous people, all the CEOs. I can tell you everybody in my world, in my community. I'm like very on track of who's losing what, And he did. It's a useless skill. The only thing I'll add to what Alina said is that I really did not. I knew that I wanted to be happy, and I knew that I wanted to live a joyful, beautiful life. But I just could not, for the life of me, understand how I got from where I was on the floor, right after my loss, to that joyful life again. Like I felt like people always wrote books when they were feeling better. No one was writing anything from the depths of hell. Mm-hmm. So I was really curious about not even curious. I was like desperate to know, like, what are the steps? What do I do to feel better? How do I get from point A to point B? And so that's why we kind of recorded the podcast as like a guidebook, not even a guidebook, just like one way for somebody to see this is what it looks like. This is the process. So that way they're feeling alone or they're at home and they say, I don't understand how I can feel joyful again. They can see it in other people. And I'll say, now I recently helped a dear, dear friend of mine who's going through a TFMR situation. And I actually said to her, she was like, I don't think I'll ever be happy again. And I said to her, I was like, I want you to look at my life right now. I know I'm a complete shit show, but do I look like I have a joyful life? Like you see me with my live children, with my family situation, like, do you see joy in my life? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. And I was like, if I can do it, you can do it. If it's possible for me, it's possible for you. I am so ordinary. And I feel like for people who are going through loss and in the early stages, just to see that there's a friendship out there that is based in loss, but is beautiful and joyful and fun and friendly and approachable. And just to see each of our own individual lives and how they've shaken out and the joy that we live in our own lives, like it's possible for them too. And I think it's a good example for people who feel like they're in the depths of hell and they have no way out. It's just a way to see that others are in it with you. So that's been the podcast. And it sounds like our podcasts are similar, but not necessarily identical. So Katherine, do you want to tell everybody what we're going to be talking about today and kind of like what we're hoping to get out of this episode?
Yeah. So we talked about basically needing to do something with our pain, pouring it into our purpose, trying to do something with it. And in a way to honor our babies, a healing journey for us, documentation, whatever it may be. And there's like a lot of different options. And I always tell people this, but some of us are kind of born, I think, with this natural ability to do certain things. And for me, it's telling people about my experiences and hope that they can pick up something good. So then the decision to make a podcast was just basically like, I wish I could write every single thing I feel and I'm thinking right now, but it would be so much. I just need to say it out loud. And so the podcast, and just to segue a little bit, started off with lost moms just telling their stories, just conversations between the two of us. So I don't have a co-host, obviously. So I would bring a guest on and we would just have conversation like we would be having a glass of wine. And sometimes we were, and picking up on the things that they were saying is what I wanted other people to hear. Like, yes, me too. Yes. Oh my God, I felt the same way. Oh, wow. I can't believe they said that. It's so similar. And so if you listen to my podcast from episode 1 to episode like 130, whatever I am right now, I took breaks when I had other babies because I was like, you can't talk about loss. But so that's why I don't have like a million episodes, but you can hear the evolution of my own grief. You can hear who I was at 6 months out, just completely shredded, torn apart, barely being able to say certain things without crying or tearing up, to then, episode 120 to me like telling you my stories and talking about my living kids and like doing whatever it is. So you can hear the evolution. And not that I'm like better by any means, but you can definitely hear the difference. And I do have professionals on there like cord compression and cord accident specialists, placenta specialists. I have fertility specialists on there, but it was mainly me wanting to get that information as well. If I thought it was helpful, I put it on the podcast and hope someone else did too. So the decision for the podcast was mainly because I needed the words to be out there, because other people's conversations were what was helping me. So I thought hearing other people speak would help others in their silence. So I've been told people listen to it like when they take a shower because they can't be by themselves, or before they go to bed when they're by themselves, or in their car when they're by themselves, anything to not be in their own thoughts. And for me, when I was, forced to go walk on the beach and look into the abyss, I searched for a podcast that would like tell me what to do or tell me what I'm feeling. And I needed that podcast to come from somebody with a similar loss experience, because these other ones to me weren't resonating. I don't know why. I'm not saying there was anything wrong with them. So I was like, well, then I need to put this out there.
Yeah.
There were a few, probably yours was probably already out there. I just was like, I couldn't find any fast enough. So I was like, I'm just going to put this out. And then it almost becomes like you can't stop.
Ours has always been kind of a niche within a niche. And it sounds like yours is, in a similar vein. But I think the big lost ones are like Grief Gang, right? And then there's the worst girl gang ever. That's what it's called.
Yeah. I'm going to be on. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Put it up. What about Good Morning? Good Morning?
Yes, and Good Morning podcast. They both lost their moms, and so like I listened to that one for a bit, and I was like, this is just like not it, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's just not the same. It's not the same. Wonderful, but not the same.
I think the niche is what I needed.
Yeah,
that's what it was. Like I think I just needed the niche, and then like I just needed to talk about stillbirth, like just for what, because I had experienced that and I had no idea what was going on. And to be honest, that was a category, in my opinion, that really didn't have that many resources, because I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even know that was a thing. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. What just happened? And I think that's why I kind of like stuck with it. But then it has evolved. I've had other, child loss on there, infant loss. And I think that having experts talk has been really important and helpful because it validates kind of what we're saying too. Like we could just be like, oh, I feel this way. But when you have experts on, people are like, that makes sense that she feels that way. And that makes sense why I do
Well,
too.
let me ask this because had you ever gone through anything before where you thought about a podcast before, or like was speaking always your way of processing? How do you typically come to tragedies or just difficult things in your life? Because I can tell you that this whole situation is not surprising to anyone in my family. So is this a surprise for your world?
Whereas for me, it is super surprising for people in my life. They're like, you are putting yourself out there and talking.
I can actually see that. I see that in the personality differences.
Although I will say the shocking thing, I think, to Judith's family is that you've now been doing it for this long, and that we can attribute to me because I'm like the executor. Judith is the ideas woman, 1,000,000%.
What I meant by that is actually slightly different, although all that is true. What I meant by that is, for me, when I approach something hard, I tend to find I need community in it. Always. I need to find someone who's similar. I need to find a friend. Everything is more fun with a friend. Even child loss it's not fun, but it is more fun with a friend. So I feel like for me, finding a friend makes sense. Creating a podcast just so we can be an extension of friends to other people. That's very in my nature. And I'm thinking about it from the lens of, if I'm someone who's just out of my loss, let's say I'm just fresh into this world and I want to be a part of the conversation. How do we know, why would you gravitate towards a podcast as opposed to just having your own Instagram page or a TikTok account or writing a book or a blog post? Like, why does this medium resonate to you? And what would you say to people who are maybe just thinking about how they want to be a part of this conversation to find what medium is good for them?
Well, yeah, exactly. That's a great question because I think, like I said, not everybody, but most of the moms I talk to do want to do something. And it's usually a journal or knitting or art or a foundation or a charity or donation or helping with the hospital bereavement. I chose this because I have been on camera before. I was about to launch a podcast in a way different industry and I already had figured out how to do it. And then what happened was I just couldn't talk about the same crap. I was like, I don't care anymore. And so I actually just took everything that I had learned on how to get one out there and just said, I got to talk about this. Like, I can't shut up. I don't know why. And so I've always been a coach at heart. And this is what I mean when I say, a lot of times we say, I died with my baby. I don't believe that. I believe parts of us did, but I do believe deep down we still have interests and skill sets and talents that do come up. I will be honest, it was hard at first because it reminded me of who I was before Brody died. That girl may not be the same person, but there are parts of me that are still very much alive because they are parts of him. He is part of that. And I have to make sure that parts of me live on as his mother. So getting back on a microphone was challenging. I've done on-camera stuff. I was an MC in-game host for Major League Baseball. I was a Miami Heat dancer. I was a commercial actress. I was in LA. Like, I did all that stuff. And so basically I was like, oh, I'm not afraid of any of this, but it does feel like my old self. But this is the only way I know how to express myself.
Interesting.
So it was really nice to harness in on those skill sets that I already had. So when moms come to me like, I don't know what to do, it doesn't have to be this big. Not everybody has the same skill set. It could be the quietest thing, a coffee mug with their name on it, or a moment in your garden, or whatever it is that's just you honoring your baby. But for me, I'm a loudmouth. I have zero filter. But Judith, to your point, I never really understood community like I do now. I'm going to be honest. I had great girlfriends, sorority sisters, who I don't talk to 90% of them anymore because I realized the depth of the relationship, it was no longer matching the energy that I needed after he died. So finding I'd always gone through issues and problems alone and was always like, I'll be fine. Everything's fine. Now, the gravity of my losses were never of this magnitude, but they were heartbreaking. I had a life full of heartbreaks, relationship loss, business loss, pet loss, like, of course. But this was next level, and I never truly knew how to be honest about my pain until now.
Yeah.
Honestly, until now. And it's been the most freeing effing thing of my whole life to stop faking it, stop masking. And I used the podcast to do that. And I just was like, and I don't care what anybody says. I just don't care. What are they going to do? Hurt my feelings? They're already hurt. Okay. Like, I'm dying inside. You can't make this worse. So I'm going to just do it because I don't know any other way
Something I
anymore.
tell people, first of all, I think that was such a perfect answer. And I feel like your advice to just say, like, look at the things that you already are comfortable with, or you know about, or you tend to go to, and utilize those to fuel the direction that you want to go. Something I tell people is, if you are somebody who wants to be a part of, let's say, the lost conversation, but you're not an extrovert, or you don't know what to say, or and you have a very strong filter. Like, something I even say is, you could make a fake Instagram account and say whatever you want on there. You don't have to be your actual self. You could be whoever you want to be. You could put a fake name. You can repost things that resonate with you without creating your own content. Like, you can be an alter ego of different version of yourself, because the version of yourself that you were may not make sense on this current Instagram profile that is your own person. You might just want to keep it separate. So that's something that I've always told people, that, like, if you want to be louder than you are in your natural state, but you don't want to start a podcast, there's a million shades of gray in between also.
Yeah,
absolutely. I completely agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, and what I think is kind of interesting though, Judith, is if you had gone with your natural skill set, you probably would have started a foundation. That's literally what you do for work, is you do fundraising. You do fundraising for the nonprofit space.
I did fundraising for nonprofits. It, like, never spoke to me.
I know.
It never spoke to me.
Me neither.
Interesting.
And even now, like, becoming like an advocate, an educator, it, like, doesn't speak to me. Talking to people about SIDS, telling them safe sleep habits, like, that, just for some reason, it doesn't resonate.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I get that. The advocacy and prevention space is way different than the grieving and bereavement space. You can either pick one or both.
Yes.
For me, I just kept gravitating towards those who had already been through it. Yeah.
Yes.
I get that.
I very much, like, both of us, we've said frequently on this podcast, like, if someone is, like, I have literally zero, I'm so glad there are people out there doing all of that prevention work. Like, that is so, 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 so important.
Amen.
But, like, people will message me and be like, how do I prevent SIDS? And I'm like, I don't know. Here's the SIDS. Here's the SIDS prevention website. Like,
oh God.
No, but you know what? Part of it is, like, I don't know, because I did all the things and it didn't work. So, like, I'm not really one to speak because I followed the rules and it didn't work. So
exactly. Yeah. Same.
Ask ChatGPT. You might have better odds. I don't know what to tell you.
Do you guys, I ask chat. Oh, Jesus. My question for you guys is, like, does this ever get super hard that you feel like you can't keep doing it, can't keep talking about loss, can't keep bringing up this subject, can't keep going to that place? Like, did you ever find that it was just getting too challenging?
I think that, okay, so for a while, we released an episode every single Monday for, I believe it was a full 3 years.
Oh my God, same.
And there was a point where we took a break in there, but before that break, we pre-recorded content and released it. It was just like little snippets here. But there was an episode every single Monday for 3 years. And then we skipped a week. And I'm somebody who is, like, a completionist and, like, a little bit of a perfectionist. And, like, it really, like, crossing that line of skipping a week was really hard for me mentally. And then I realized, like, it's okay. Like, the podcast is still here. And I think now we're at a point, like I said, we were 5 years out. We've been recording significantly less frequently in the last year. And it feels okay to me. Yeah. And I think if you had told me this, if you told me in the beginning I was still going and this many years later, I would have been shocked by that. But let's say 2 years ago, if you had told me we kind of weren't really recording anymore, I think I would have felt a lot of grief about that, because it was it held such an important place in my life and in my grief for so long. And now I feel like my grief is just a slightly different shape. And a lot of the edges of it just don't fit into this podcast anymore, or vice versa. And that's okay. That's okay. To me,
Yeah.
we have always said when we have things to say, we will come on here and we will record and we will say those things. And when we don't have anything to say, we don't want to just like put out an episode of us talking about like repainting Judith's living room for no reason, you know? Like sometimes that's what's going on in our life at this point. 5 years out, like it's not day in, day out, day in, day out crying. And that's a good thing. That's something that should be comforting to people in the early days of the loss, is that we are not talking about it constantly every single week anymore. And the last thing I'll say about that is that, again, if you'd asked me a long time ago, I would have felt sad, because I do think there's a part of early grief where it's so intense and you feel like the love for your child is going to go away if the grief lessens. And it's just not true. Like, I love him the exact same amount. I think about him pretty much the exact same amount. I just don't, it's not the same. The baggage isn't so heavy anymore. And that's a relief. It's a good thing. This is the best case scenario, is that I have less to say now. We kind of stopped recording so frequently. It coincided with the birth of my alive daughter, my first child after loss. And I don't think it's a coincidence, but I also don't think it's the only reason. I think more than my daughter being born, it's that we are in a different space. Broadly, the two of us are just in a different space because of the time that has passed, not because I had an alive child, although I could see people seeing that timing and being like, oh, it's because Alina has an alive baby and now she's all set. It's not that at all. Like, Judith has had alive kids this whole time, almost this whole time, and we've still been doing it. But I think that's a conversation that I would love to like.
No, I think
I would
that's
love
a
to
good
dive into
point.
that a little bit more. But I want to let you answer too, Judith.
I would agree that the reason that we record less is one about saying something, also because of like the day-to-day circumstances. Alina's home with her alive baby, and I am working out of the office, and like I'm not as available as I was when I was working from home.
I
And
mean, Judith, you were fully unemployed when we started this podcast. Like, I was on medical leave because I was so mentally ill after my son died. You had quit your job because you were unable to work. So like, it was just like a different scenario.
it was a different time. The only thing that I will add, and Alina, once again, you spoke so beautifully, is that first and foremost to me is that our friendship is real and true.
Okay.
Podcast aside, the podcast is an extension of mine and Alina's friendship. It only exists
She calls
because
me Alicia. She says we have a real and true friendship. She doesn't even say my right name.
no,
Rude.
just that
Just
one
kidding.
second I didn't say that. But the friendship is real and true. And part of the podcast was just to show a window into this friendship and what it's like to have a friend, so you're not as alone in the loss. And so to me, podcast aside, the more important thing is our friendship nurtured? And does it feel like I have the energy for that friendship? And am I giving that friendship enough time and focus? And are we in contact? And that to me is probably more important than the question you're asking, which is like, do you feel like you still have the energy to put it in? I feel like when we have time to be together, I feel like I've been prioritizing more. I just want to spend time with my friend rather than I want to record a podcast right now. I want to talk to her about that date I went on last week, or I want to talk to her about her husband's whatever. Or it's like, I think you have to prioritize so it's like more of a reflection of like when we're together, we just want to be focused on one another and enjoying the time that we're together. When we're on the phone, it's not like we're on the phone all day anymore. So it's just like, I want to talk to her without people listening or watching or observing. And I think part of it is that too. And that's just an evolution also of time. But I feel like that's different than your circumstance. But to answer your question, yes, we record a lot less. It's taking up less space, but the love for our child has not changed at all. And the amount we think about a child, maybe we're just doing less processing, but everything else is the same. Okay, Katherine, that was a long answer. What about you? How has your podcast changed?
You guys both spoke so well and it resonates so much. And I think two things I want to say on what you both said is one, like if you guys did go on and just start talking about paint colors, I would still listen because it's like what I'm getting is that people listen to you in the darkest times of their lives because they don't have people. They need community and companionship and understanding and support during the worst time of their life. So they know your voices. And so they grow to know you and your lives. And you are a direct reflection of having a happy life, just like you said, Judith, to your friend. And so just watching you, just hearing you guys say, yes, this is taking a little bit of back seat because I've got this going on and that going on. Because from the outsiders, it looks like we are constantly mourning because that's all our content really is just grief, support, loss, life after, but tying it into the loss. Like, so whenever I get on and I'm just like talking shit about nothing, it's from the lost lens. It's from somebody who has survived the unimaginable in her world and dug herself out to get to a point where she can talk like this and still have a normal-ish life.
Yeah.
And I think that really does resonate with a lot of people. And I think that's important to show that we do have a life, that we are not identified. We don't identify with our losses. We carry them with us. We love them
Well,
so much
do you feel
more.
sadness about this shift in it, or do you feel peace with it?
So it depends on what my intention is. And I always tell mamas who are looking for their purposes, what is your intention? To stay close to your baby, to honor them loudly so others can see, to serve a community that you feel like you want to help, because sometimes that's how a lot of us parent, is continuing the name by helping moms get through the worst time of their life. And that's what I told Brody before I handed him over to the nurse for the last time. I promised him, I'm going to help the moms of your angel buddies get through the worst time ever. That's how I'm going to help. That's what I'm going to do for you. And that is something I've tried to stick to. So yes, it has been challenging to not do it every week, to maybe do it every 2 weeks, to actually go through a span of time where I'm in a bad place and I can't get it out there, or I'm so busy and I can't get out there. So yes, it did feel like I was not letting him down, but it was like a piece of my healing journey that really just needed to be put aside for a second. And like you, Alina, I had that, I gotta get out there. I can't skip a week because somebody needs to hear this kind of thing, and felt like I was letting down my community. So that was really, really challenging. But I had to learn that I have to look out for myself right now. I have to be good here for my kids and present for my living children as much as I am for my angel baby, because sometimes I do feel like I do so much more for him than them sometimes, and I'm like, how is that even like a possibility? But it does happen because you feel so bad stepping away. And I like to say, well, if he was here, I'd have to step away. But also, like, you can put things aside for a little bit and you can always go back to it. And I tell my moms that who've started charities that kind of lost their steam, or they started selling in a little shop on Etsy, but they haven't been able to do much with it. It happens all the time. And the guilt is so much there. But like you said, Judith, the love doesn't change. It's just not as obvious to outsiders anymore. And that's something we can't really worry about. And it's okay to put it aside and come back to it.
Yeah. Something you said made me think that I actually do think there is one piece that I do actually have some guilt about. And that is that we have not recorded anything in the moment of a real true grief hour in years. Because in the beginning, those were like, I'd be like, I'm in the parking lot crying at the grocery store, get on the thing, like, let's record. And we deliberately shared that a lot because it felt like really important stuff. Now, I don't want to share that anymore. That doesn't feel comfortable for me to share anymore. But I know those episodes are some of the ones that are the most helpful. They're the ones that have a lot of re-listens. Like, we can see in the stats, like, people go back and they listen to them over and over again on a bad day. And we don't do those anymore. And so I have a little bit of guilt that we don't show the depths of despair anymore. And I hope people don't think it's not still there. It is. It's just less frequent and more private. So I do have a little bit of guilt about that. But I get it.
It's interesting.
I think just saying that you still have them. Yeah, I totally get that. I think, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of gaslight myself sometimes at year 4, almost 4.5, of like, I shouldn't be this sad. What is my deal? Oh my God, like, get it together, pull yourself up. Like, my eyes popped open this morning and all I thought was him.
Yeah. I either am like, Alina, you haven't cried in like 3 weeks. What's wrong with you? Or I'm like, Alina, why have you cried every single day for 3 weeks? There's something wrong with you. It's like, it goes one way or the other. pretty much.
I cry all the time about it still. So if anybody's wondering, like, maybe I'm not calling Alina because also part of it is I know how to handle it better myself.
Yeah.
Like, I just know how to manage it. I don't need
Yeah.
to do it in a supported environment because I know what it feels like. But rest assured, to everyone listening, you may not be hearing it, but I cry all the time about it. And I think about it all the time. And someone said to
Even
me the
you
other
just
day,
saying that
Yeah.
means a lot. Yeah.
someone said to me the other day, they're like, you have this very specific, distinct look where it's like the saddest, happiest look I've ever seen. It's like you're so happy, but you're also sad in the face. Like your face reads that way. And I was like, that's very observant.
Is that a compliment?
Kind of makes sense.
Is that an
Yeah.
insult? I can't tell.
That's very observant of this person. And I think, there's probably truth. So rest assured, we are still crying. We're just probably not sharing it. And I carry guilt also about certain things, but like I was saying, not that. One thing that's very interesting that I carry guilt about is that I'm aware that I've said a lot of things on this podcast, like a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I am concerned that one day my live children will hear it. It's not like a book where you can edit it again, or it's like living and breathing. Everyone can hear every single intonation of my voice. I'm afraid that one day my live children will hear how much I struggled with their pregnancies and how hard those first years of their lives were. And I'm afraid that they will think in any way that I was burdened by it, or that it was, like, just because it was hard, I don't want them to think that it was not worth it, or like, I want my children to feel so loved.
It's the distinction between the bad and hard. They might listen to that and think it was bad, but it was just hard.
Right. And I'm aware that my kids could hear this one day. And I think about that all the time. Actually, the only audience member that I think about is my future children. I am aware that there are a lot of strangers that listen to this. I'm shocked when I hear from like random people from high school who told me that they've been listening every week. I think it's like hysterically funny. But the only person that I really worry about listening to this podcast is my future, like my live children in the future listening to it. I'm afraid that they might hear something in it that makes them think that for some reason, just because those first couple of years of both of their lives were so horrific, that it wasn't also like the best decisions I made.
Yeah.
And I love them so much,
That's so completely valid. I think about that all the time. Yeah. The one thing someone said to me, though, which has stuck with me recently, because I did struggle with like the footprint online and all the things that I've been documenting, and I never want them to be in his shadow or anything like that. Somebody said to me, though, that what I've done is be honest about how I'm feeling, when most of the time, especially as women, we kind of are told not to. And I think that would have raging effects on my mental health if I wasn't honest about it. So what I'm saying is like showing my kids to be honest about how you feel and to not judge someone for how they're feeling and being honest about it and accepting that it was hard and not bad. Like you said, Alina, it was just really hard. I think is teaching them to not be afraid to do so themselves. And the things that I'm trying to accomplish and do is because I feel a calling, I feel a push, I feel a drive, and I would want them to follow as well. So that's the only thing that's been kind of comforting for me, to be like
But you
honest
also think
about how,
that? You also think
of
about
course.
your yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing, when you do something so big, to honor a baby that's gone, you fear that your livings are like, well, why didn't I get that? And why didn't you do that for me? And it's, I might have to answer those questions. I don't know. But all I know is I'm trying to show mamas that you can survive something you don't want to, and you can do it and constantly learn how to dig yourself out and get to a point where you can have a happy, fulfilling life that's sometimes sad, but mostly happy instead of mostly sad and sometimes happy. It does shift. Yeah. And in an effort on doing that, I might do or say some things that I may have to explain later. I don't know. I don't know. I'm new at this. And that's the only thing, is like, I should have more fear, but I don't.
I will say, I think that for me at least, I think the growth for me as a person that has come out of having this podcast and the amount of healing that it has facilitated for me has made me such a better mom to my daughter, that any potential detriment, which I agree there could theoretically be a detriment. Like, I think that the positives outweigh the negatives by like 10,000 fold. But yeah, she's not never getting a podcast. Like, I'm not doing a podcast about her. She's
Yeah.
she's got a little bit of a baby book and whatever. She's not getting a whole, hundreds of hours of content dedicated to my love for her, shared publicly. So, but she gets what she gets, and she's alive. So,
Catherine, I have a question for you about when you meet people who listen to your podcast that you don't know. There's this kind of weird parasocial relationship where they know a lot about you, they know you, they
Mhm.
know a lot about you, and maybe you know their baby's name. I don't know. You don't know much about them. And I'm curious if you've had that experience and because that's unique to podcasting or blogging or vlogging that you wouldn't get if you wrote a book or you started a foundation or a nonprofit. So how does that feel for you?
Um, I have, when I get that, you've gotten me through a really hard or dark time, or, that I hate to hear that they had to listen to me, but that it helped was the mission, that is the purpose of the podcast. And, you know, what ends up happening though is like somewhere halfway through making this podcast, it started off as Brody's story. And then at some point, Brody's story didn't end, but my story started. He is a big part of my story. So now the podcast sometimes rolls into what I'm doing, what my life is, what I'm feeling, thinking, learning. And I've been very honest that I still have moments of grief, and I still have moments of trauma responses, and I still have moments of frustration and anger and rage and regret and blame, and I still do. Um, and unfortunately, I do sometimes get people who like want to weigh in on my recent thought or my delivery or how I didn't answer the question the way they wanted to, and feel the need to kind of go in on me in DMs, whether it's a million questions or tell me a really big story or like criticism. And the good far outweighs the bad. But when you get that criticism and people feel comfortable to tell you you did X, Y, and Z, you're just like, but I'm just trying to help, and I'm a human being, and I'm still struggling and trying to figure this out. I'm only year 4, and I've heard year 5 is when you finally start to maybe feel normal again, or normal in your grief, or I don't know, but like, yeah, it always kind of strikes me that I have put so much out there, and I'm kind of like, whoa, somebody listened? I can't believe somebody listened to that. Like, so, I will not, I would be lying if I said I do sometimes now filter a little bit more, like maybe not share everything. I don't know. It's all a learning process. You guys
Are there
know.
things that you have chosen deliberately to keep private? So, for example, neither of us says our living kids' names, and we talk about what parenting after loss looks like from the loss perspective, but we don't share parenting living children like as a journey. And then both of us have been separated from our partners. I have a living child with a new partner, and Judith has living children with Aiden's dad, but they're now separated. And so we don't really talk about the separations much either. We're very respectful of those relationships with our exes. Are there things that you deliberately choose not to share, either because you don't want to open up to criticism or because it just feels like not the place? Other than that, we're pretty much open books, but there's like those two things I think we're pretty private about.
Um, I am private. I mean, not really. I don't, I kind of just fly with whatever, and like, I'm probably like, ooh, I shouldn't have, whatever. But I always have to sometimes ask my husband, like, I said this, are you okay with it? Like, I have a book coming out. I'm like, there's a part in here about sex after loss. And he's like, do I need to read it? And I'm like, if you want. And then I don't know if he, so I'm like, whatever, it's getting published. So whatever. But I do run things by him to make sure I'm not like completely embarrassing him. But like, I'm currently going through some things right now that I have not decided yet if I want to share or if the timing is right. So I usually keep my talks more so about the general observations or experiences that I'm having on the day to day that maybe could resonate with more people. If I do decide to open up about a different type of journey that I've been on, everyone will know. But I will say I have no trouble saying it. I really don't at this point. Like, people, like, if you don't, I don't know. people are going to always judge no matter what we do or say. And if I speak less, it's, oh, what's wrong with her? You know, if I speak too much, oh, she said the wrong thing. People are coming at me about different stuff. I don't care. I got other stuff to do. This is supposed to be like oddly fun.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be therapeutic. This is supposed to feel good. The day it isn't anymore, I will stop it.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's like a different.
Do people recognize you in public? Let's talk
Oh
shop
God,
for a
no,
second.
dude, no.
Do people recognize you?
Me? No.
Yeah.
That would be so
So I get recognized, but that is because there's an organization I work with that is a baby loss organization, and I wind up getting recognized at events for that.
That's cool.
It is cool, but it is also so funny. There's somebody that I actually now have more of a real friendship with. But she came up to me at an event many years ago. This was pretty soon after her son had died, and she was listening to the podcast, and she said, "How's IVF going, Alina?" And I was like there was like a part of me that was like, "Wait, how do you know I'm doing IVF?" Like it was like so confusing because she was a total stranger to me.
Oh yeah.
Because it's weird.
Yeah, and now I know her well, and I know she listens, and she'll laugh that happened. But like, it really is. It's an odd situation, and I think all podcasters of any content would probably feel the same.
Because I think also it's, for me, it's odd, at least because this is like such a sacred space. It's such a sacred space for me and Aiden and Alina and Quinn, her son. And to me, it feels so sacred. And that's the beauty of a podcast, that like it can be that. And then I completely forget there's an audience. I really do. I completely forget that there are people who are listening to this in their commute. Yeah. And so when they meet me in person, if they say something about it, then I always feel like, I'm thoroughly shocked. I'm shocked. I'm always surprised
also,
that
oh
people
my
are
God,
interesting.
Some of these episodes we've released are not good, you guys. Like, you guys are like, you are loyal, and some of our stuff is terrible. I gotta say, we have some real stinkers.
You know what I'm learning here from this, Alina? There are people like, I think what's clear to me is that Katherine was just destined to be a star, and you and I are just...
We just stumbled into it.
Oh my God, shut your mouth.
I feel like we're both like, so we're like, wait, people are listening, and you're like, Katherine, you're saying like, this is awesome. People are listening. And Lena and I are like, oh gosh.
Yeah, but again, you guys don't realize I don't think you've ever really, you want to wrap your brain around the magnitude of what you do.
I don't think so.
I
don't think so. I would say right now we don't.
Then I mean, maybe, I don't know what that would do if you finally wrap your brain around it, but like, it's helpful.
Do you feel like you have a sense of the impact that you make? You know what? Sometimes, I have to say, hold on. Sometimes we get these messages in our DMs and Alina, or our email, and Alina and I will screenshot it and share it with the other person. And we'll write in we'll be like, I'm crying. I can't believe that we helped somebody.
Fully crying.
We're crying. One person, even just one. Because if you go on back into the mind of who you were right after after it happened, it's hard to believe you were that person. But that person is existing out there right now. They're feeling exactly how you felt.
Yes. Well, no, Katherine, you know what else is amazing and actually makes me feel so good, what you just said, is that person who felt so weak and so incapable and so just shackled to the ground helped people. Like, I felt like in that moment, I was taking so much from my friends, from my family, from everyone. I was just like, I could give nothing to the universe. I was just taking. And it does feel very good and meaningful to me to think like, even in your weakest point, you still had something to give. And you gave so brilliant. You gave, so generously of what you could give. And I feel like that makes me feel really good, actually. Like, it feels good to know that even when I felt like I could do nothing, I was actually really doing something beautiful.
Oh my God.
And I wish that person from 5 years ago knew that she would get strong again. I think looking back, that's something really kind to say to that person
But that's who you're speaking to when you talk. Sometimes you're speaking to that person you were.
Yes. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. And that's the pull for me. And I feel like there were so many moms who reached into the pits of fiery hell to pull me out so that I can turn around and do that for someone else. And if it is hard, that's why not everybody does it. And it gets hard. And it's okay if anybody wants to start something in honor of their baby and they feel pulled and called. It's not going to be easy. And I tell them that. And it's okay to step back and say, this is really hard right now and I can't do this. But if you just continue to show up for yourself and whatever it means to you and just keep doing it even through the hard, I mean, amazing things can happen for others. Otherwise, what do we do with this? Like, what do we do with this pain?
Yeah.
What do we do with their names? And it used to be educate people on this and help people get out of the griefiness. Now it's living a beautiful life with them coming along with us.
Yeah.
That's the new message because it grows and evolves, like you said. And I'm not saying we're like saviors or martyrs or whatever, but like we do have the intention of helping those that are going through the worst time ever. And even in phases now, because it doesn't stop for a lot of us. Like first day of kindergarten, they should be going. And then, oh my God, kids the same age they would be, getting married later on. Like we're going to think about them. And yes, we may not be brought to our knees like we were before, but we are living proof, like you said, Judith, that we can still feel these things, but recover faster and live a good, joyful life. And I think what you guys have done is phenomenal. And I was scared to reach out. I was like, they're not going to want my ass on here.
What would you say to somebody who says, I don't want to do anything? Like, I don't feel called to do anything. What do you think is going on there? What would you say? What are your thoughts?
It is not my place to diagnose or interpret or process or judge their feelings, their grief. I would tell them if that's how they want to do lost life, they absolutely can. If that's how they want to honor their baby. There's a lot of people I have talked to that just don't want to acknowledge the death. They just want to move forward. They just, and I will say to them, if you are in pain and you're hurting, the only way to move through it is to feel it. And so if I would give a heads up, if you do push this away, be prepared to at some point be faced with feeling this and faced to move through it. It really is.
Yeah.
But it's not my place to force them to do that. So it's a question of, well, do you want to work through this now or do you want to work through this later?
Yeah.
If you want to do something to feel closer to your baby eventually, then consider the smallest thing possible. But it's just one little tiny thing that you can do. It kind of breaks my heart when people want nothing to do with their babies, but it's not my position to push anything. That's just not my job. My job is to support not my job, but how I serve is to support.
Yeah.
I will say, I think people who don't want to maintain a connection to their loss probably are not going to find this either of these podcasts. So those people are probably not going to find us.
Although, Alina, wait a minute. Remember that woman who had her remember she had a miscarriage like 20 years ago?
Yes, I know that. I know exactly who you're talking about.
There was a woman who reached out to us who her loss was 20 years ago. She had a miscarriage 20 years ago.
They didn't have this kind of stuff. No outlet, no naming, nothing.
And she never processed it. And she's just now, in the past few years, dealing with the loss that happened 20 years ago.
Oof.
She's doing EMDR right now. I was just chatting with her.
I would say to somebody who's like, I don't want to do anything, whatever. I would say, you do how you grieve, how you want to grieve. But just like you said, there's no wrong, no right. But what I would say is life is long and this grief journey is long. If you feel different later, do something different later. Yeah. Like I would say, don't say I will never, because I feel like when I first had this loss, before we started this podcast, I was like, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
Which made sense. But I was like, I will never be a foundation person. I will never start a nonprofit. I have no interest in doing advocacy. I never want to make an app. I don't want to do a art tribute. I don't want to donate a bench. Like I had a long, there was a chapter where I didn't want anything. And I feel like what I would have said to that person now is like, okay, right now you don't want to do anything now.
Yeah.
You may change your mind. The right thing might open your heart and you'll be like, wait, that's interesting. Let me pursue that. Yeah. And if that's not the thing, change it. And if something else is the thing, change it. And if it's none of, and in 20 years, we probably won't be having a podcast, but we definitely will still be loving our children. Yeah. And maybe that will look, we'll do something else with it. Yeah. Or maybe we will have a necklace that we wear with their name. And like, that's enough at that time. I just feel like the only thing I would say to that earlier version of me that was like, I absolutely want nothing, is that this shit changes so much. Yes. Every month it changes. Every year it changes. It's constantly evolving. this podcast may be meaningful and impactful for me for these 5 years, and then it will mean nothing to me for the next 10. And then I'll
And
want
that's
to pick it,
okay. But here's what I tell people on that note, Judith, and this is so important to me. I think a lot of times people make decisions about how they grieve, how they cope, how they honor, how they process, whatever, based off two things. One, pressure on themselves for what they should be doing, how they should feel, how this should look. Also, pressure about what they think other people are going to think, say, and do regarding our coping, our grieving, our honoring. Okay.
Yes.
So no matter what I say it to every single mom, no matter what you decide to do, make sure it's what you want. Make sure it's what you want as a human, as a mother, and as the mother to your angel baby or whatever you want to say, and not what anyone else thinks. And you stop the pressure on yourself, stop shoulding all over yourself. I should be doing all this stuff. Stop. Make sure your decision is yours and yours only, because the last thing we want is regrets. If I made a decision to not do something or to do something based off what I thought other people would think, and shit goes south and something goes wrong, I would literally never forgive myself. I would rather shit go south based off something I decided on my own, or something amazing happens because I decided on my own, because I was courageous enough to do it, even with the fear. That is the only thing I can tell people, because it makes me so frustrated. I'm so afraid to do this because I think my in-laws are going to say this. Who gives a shit? Like, God, you know, I know it's so easy for me to say right now, but like, we have so much weight to carry with the deaths. We cannot carry the weight of the expectations of or anticipation of other people's thoughts and feelings. It's insane.
Yes.
I am so sorry, guys, but I actually have to go to work. I have a work meeting right now.
I have one last question for you, Katherine. So Judith, you can hop.
Yeah, I'll go. You guys stay.
Judith, thank you. Keep in touch.
Okay, so Katherine, earlier you mentioned that you are making this your life's work. So what does that mean? What do? You have this podcast, obviously. You've mentioned a book. You have a bunch of things in the works, and I want to give you an opportunity to share what you have working, what you're working on, and all of that, so that everybody knows, because it's not just the podcast.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's so nice. Well, somewhere along the line, the podcast and all my content, everything switched from like my own healing journey, my own building of community and support and comfort in that, has shifted now into what I intend to do moving forward. So I am now grief certified as a coach, as an educator. I'm trauma-informed care professional. I did write a book about how to survive the first year after a stillbirth that is coming out May 7th of 2026. And I created LostLink. It's a searchable platform. It's a website, lostlink.com, where you could find moms with similar losses, anything from pregnancy loss, miscarriage, stillbirth, TFMR, infant loss, child death, and adult child death. Search in your zip code, search nationwide, search internationally for them so you can meet in person, or search for anybody after you create your profile so that you can DM and find community. Because I think that is the most important thing in the whole world in all of this, is finding your people.
Yeah.
And finding even if it's just one person to go with you through this lost life. So, you know, I have some things in the works.
Irons in the fire.
Yeah, I don't know how to stop. It gets hard. And so I've had to really learn how to like put it away for a second and go enjoy time doing something else and self-care and all the things, you know, but I'm really proud of the work and the community that I serve.
Yes. We actually we had somebody mention, they like messaged us. They were in like Ireland, and they were like, "Do you know anybody in Ireland? Like, we need somebody." And I put a call out on our stories, and I was like, I feel like there's somebody in this space. I feel like there was somebody that was doing a thing where they were linking people. Like, can somebody tell me what it was? And everyone was like, LostLink, LostLink, LostLink.
Shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So that was like just a couple weeks before you messaged us. So I will say, I will link LostLink in the description of this episode on our platform. I'm sure you link your things on your platform too. So if you're listening on at a Total Loss platform, you'll, I'm sure, see the links there, and you probably already know about it, but I will link that there. I think there's an annual cost, right, to join that. So I'm going to link that. If you're looking for like people in your community, I think the idea is that it's in-person meetups, right? Or like any kind of meetup.
Well, I'm hoping to get it to that point. Yeah. Cause it just needs people on it, you know, to like get into the zip code. You could search by zip code. Like, And it could be virtually, it could be anybody, anywhere. And that's the point. Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yes. So that is the thing we get frequently. We very frequently get messages of people being like, do you know anybody in XYZ state? And we're like, no, sorry.
Other countries. Yeah. It is international
yeah.
platform. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thank you guys so much for having this conversation with me. I think you guys are such an
This
inspiration.
was the best.
Oh my gosh. Like,
This was the absolute best.
I feel so much better about the struggles and the life work and I know our losses are very different experiences, but the similarities that you guys have demonstrated are just like make me feel comfortable
Yeah.
and supported, and like we're just women trying to live the
And it's so
dream.
fun to talk shop too with like somebody who's kind of like it has the ins and outs of like the crazy DMs and like also the heartfelt, meaningful, wonderful DMs. Like it's a wild ride in the DMs. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. The internet's kind of crazy, even in the child loss space and baby loss space. Like it's like, whoa.
It is. I know.
But it takes a
Yeah.
village, my friend, and I appreciate you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and for having us on your podcast and vice versa.
Yeah, I'll link all you guys as well. I'll link your stuff as well, and people will reach out. And
We've got nothing going on except this podcast, so you can just link this podcast. But
hey, stop that! This podcast is important.
It's it's good. It's great. If you are a listener of As Long as I'm Living and you're listening on As Long as I'm Living, make sure you check out At a Total Loss with Katherine Lazar. And if you are listening on At a Total Loss and you don't know me and Judith from As Long as I'm Living, come check us out. We have an Instagram at As Long as I'm Living podcast and our podcast. And we would love to have you. I think, Katherine, I'm going to try to have this come out on our platform. What do you say we try to have this come out the week of your book launch? Would that be good? Like maybe May 4th?
Heck yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
To all of our wonderful new friends, we want to hear from you. Email us at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. We'll get back to you as soon as our grieving brains allow.
Yay!